Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and I am once again with my broadcast partner, the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman Josh Hill, for another edition of Jason and the Gentleman. Josh, how are you doing? I mean, we're only a few more days away from Christmas.
I know it doesn't really feel like Christmassy kind of, what I mean? It's a weird year, but trying to make it as Christmassy as we possibly can though.
No, I know it's definitely feeling a little awkward, especially with the news in the province that we're heading back to a lockdown. But uh, what a way to do it! We can do our Christmas shopping and everything, spend time with the family, then never see them again. So perfect timing for that. But yeah, try to make the most out of it as we are, as of recording this, like 3 days away from Christmas.
Yeah, well, I think lockdowns are not good, but I don't make those decisions, and yeah, we'll definitely make the best of it though for sure.
Yeah, as we have been in the past, but let's get into it, Josh. I mean, it was a busy last week of mixed martial arts action, highlighted by the UFC, their final show of 2020, which was headlined by Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Jeff Hands of Steel Neal. And what'd you think of this event, Josh? Because I thought there were some good fights, but it did seem like it was lacking a tad bit. But they have stacked 2021 early for a big start for the UFC.
I liked it, man. I thought it was a good card, to be honest. There was a lot of fights that I was looking forward to, some surprises and some hopefuls that I wanted to win, and they did, and then I thought the main event was great too. So overall, I think it was pretty good.
So let's talk about the main event because it was a fight between two guys in Stephen Thompson and Jeff Neal that hadn't fought at all in 2020 and up until that point. And Jeff Neal had some serious complications at the hands of COVID-19, was in the hospital, and just Wonderboy was just inactive, couldn't get the fights that he needed. But what'd you think of the fight? Because once again, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and his karate style just proved to be downright impossible to just find a way to break.
Thought he looked amazing. I thought he looked the best he's ever looked, to be honest. Yeah, he does have that awkward karate style. But what I was even more impressed with was his movement, his footwork, and the way he created angles and kind of hit and that's old school karate, hit and get out of the way, get those points. But he's actually doing more than that. He wasn't just touching. At the first two rounds he wasn't, but then he started sitting down a little bit more on his punches. Credit to Neal for taking it and kept coming the whole time. And the amount of strikes thrown too in that 25 minutes was plenty. So impressive for Neal to kind of to stay in there and keep making it a fight. But Thompson looked, I think, the best he's ever looked. It was awesome watching him move around like that.
What is it about the karate style, though, Josh, that we've seen have a lot of success where, all I used to hear about was karate's kind of, a lame martial art. It's no jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, but, Lyoto Machida's had success with it in the UFC, and now Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Like, what is it about this karate style that is just so effective in MMA?
It's different because you don't usually see it anymore, right? When you go in an MMA gym, usually you have a kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing as your primary striking repertoires. But yeah, so a lot of people don't get to train with a lot of guys that do have this kind of traditional karate background, and the stance is weird. It's a lot of like hands down, which is actually technically what we're not supposed to teach them. But and it's much more kick involved. Karate, Taekwondo, way more kick involved. Usually they don't have great hands, but their kicks are usually deadly, and they come from all sorts of angles and spinning attacks, and a lot of where Muay Thai it's a little bit more power kicks, and you're really chopping down and putting that weight on it. With karate, it's a little more snap. Which is a little bit quicker, so it can be tricky, and when used properly, it can be very effective.
Well, it's obviously been effective. I mean, Thompson's looked great. I mean, it's been obviously his foundation, and he's had success with it, not just in the UFC and MMA, but throughout his whole martial arts career. But, you brought up the point that you were impressed with Jeff Neal, and I was as well, for a guy that had really nothing going his way, but showed his toughness, showed his ability to last the 5 rounds as well. I was really impressed with Jeff Neal, and I think his stock, even though it was an outright, total unanimous decision loss for him, I thought his stock raised quite a bit.
I think at no point was he in control of the fight ever. Wonderboy, from the start to finish, ran that fight. I was just more so impressed with his durability, his cardio, his toughness. He kept, trying to power punch with Wonderboy early, and I think that was a mistake. And he was kind of, he wasn't really trapping him. He was just kind of chasing him. And a guy like Wonderboy moves so well. It's hard, it's, a lot easier said than done. I'm trying to, trap a guy like Wonderboy, but overall, I think despite the loss, it definitely showed that he can hang at least with the upper echelon.
Yeah, I mean, especially for him coming back after a near death experience and getting in there showed, he's got to shake some of that rust off. Stephen Thompson's such a tough matchup for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know where they go next with Neil, but he's not out of it by any means to jump right back into a near title contention picture where he is, because Thompson's such a tough game and always a tough opponent. But let's look at the co-main event, Josh. There were a couple big bantamweight fights, and this one was one we were really excited about when we previewed it last week. Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera, and you said it last week that while Aldo had lost 3 in a row, he's still looking pretty good, and validated your point because he looked sensational. Looked like the best we've seen him, maybe even since his title run and those WEC days.
Yeah, and we got a little bit of that old school Aldo, that liver shot, chopping the leg, that combination he does so well that it's just beautiful to watch. And that's why he's the best featherweight ever, but now he's bantamweight. But he's doing, like I said, he dropped down to bantamweight, had 2 losses, one super, super close fight to Marlon that could have won anyway. And then the Peter Yan fight where I think he just kind of ran out of steam, and Peter Yan just tough and durable and so good. But he looked really, really good early in that fight, and so I said, I'm like, I don't think it's, it just kind of hasn't played out in his favor, but he's looked good. And in this fight, it was the same thing, and I think it was a good matchup with a guy like Marlon Vera, who's a good striker that will sit there and be there in that pocket with him, and it was beautiful. And I think Aldo did exactly what he needed to do to get, first of all, to secure a win. And get that confidence back, and I think he can now, be even better next fight.
As well, pushing a guy that was riding his career, biggest win in Vera, who beat Sugar Sean O'Malley. His stock had been raised up, and what do you go from Vera? Because he could be. I don't think he's gonna be, but he's on that verge of win some, lose some, win some, lose some, and in such a deep division. Like, where does Vera go next?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But that division is so stacked with guys that that top 15, even 20. Like, there's so many matchups there you can make. Offhand, I can't think of somebody right now. Maybe like a Cody Stamen or somebody along, or a Song rematch, because that fight was very, very close and controversial on the win. But yeah, he's still in that upper echelon, right?
The last thing on that fight, what'd you think of Aldo's sticker tattoo? That was kind of weird. I was like, did Aldo get some ink? Because I didn't, some of these guys, they get up there, they want to, feel young again. They put some ink on, but luckily it was kind of like those ones that you used to get at Pizza Hut that you just rub on you, and it felt faded. But at first I thought got some ink, but maybe a fresh coat of paint for a new Jose Aldo heading into 2021.
I don't know what it was. I just seen it. I looked like he got a new tattoo, and I was like, oh, cool. And then it was coming off by the end. I don't know. I maybe usually now, especially in the UFC, I remember back in the day, the guys used to get that temporary tattoo on the backs with the Caesar's Palace and shit, just to promote and get a sponsor out of it. But they kind of cut that off, and you don't see it happen anymore. So I don't know. Maybe people just thought it was a real tattoo, and then he went in there and it was washed off.
Yeah, because he didn't have it at the weigh-ins and at the the stare-off, and it was in there. But luckily it was for the fake and went away, because I don't think Aldo needs anything. He's such a badass as it is. He doesn't need a tattoo to prove anything. But you're talking about, you don't know where Marlon Vera goes. Maybe you just match Marlon Vera up with Marlon Moraes in a Marlon battle, since Marlon Moraes took one right on the chin from Rob Font, and what a win for Font, his biggest win as a pro. And he's just elevated his stock in this deep bantamweight division.
Yeah, that was definitely a big win for Font. And he came out, he got taken down early, but he stayed composed and got up to his feet. And Yeah, with Marlon, man, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's I know he left Mark Henry, and I think I don't know exactly when he left it, but he definitely has a better track record with him as of right now than without him as a coach. And maybe he's cutting too much weight because he looked bigger than ever in this fight too. I thought, or he may just needs to take some time off and kind of get away from taking so many shots because he started off as UFC career. I think it was 5-1 with one decision, and then now he's 1-3 in his last four, I believe. So I don't know what's going on with him. I think he just needs a reset. Kind of let your mind heal up and your head heal up and your body, and then I know what he was doing with the Cody Sandhagen, kind of jumping back really quick, trying to get back in the win column, kind of shake off a loss real quick. But sometimes that backfires, like it did here with Font.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, do you think he kind of took this fight a little too quick? Because obviously I know you guys as competitors, when you get a loss, you want to get it, try to evaporate that from your mind and your soul quickly. But it seemed like he took this fight way too quick and should have let that jaw and the body heal up from the loss to Sandhagen.
Yeah, maybe you maybe you're right. Maybe it was too quick, and he should have taken a little bit more time to just kind of recoup and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. Or maybe it's just over. He's been at it for a long time. He was in Muay Thai champ long before MMA, and he's been training forever. So just there's a lot of miles on your body and your head, and things kind of start going on you. I'm hoping not. I'm rooting for the guy. He's an old nemesis. If you want to call that. But no, he's. I always cheer for him when I see him fighting. So we'll see where he goes from here, though.
But I mean, let's talk about the winner here. Rob Font, a guy, from this New England cartel with his management. And, they're starting to get that management group. They're starting to get the fights like Font now. Calvin Kattar is going to be fighting in the main event against Max Holloway on January 16th, UFC's first show. And, for Font, this is a guy that I noticed they put the Puerto Rican flag there with him. His parents are of Puerto Rican descent. And, we've talked about UFC really trying to market to that crowd. And there's a guy that you can really get behind, someone that it's got that power and can put you away quickly. Like, that was a huge win for Font. I believe his first finish since 2017, 2018. And to beat someone like Marlon Moraes, that just solidifies how good you are.
Yeah, and it just that was a huge feather in his cap, and it shot up his. His ranking. His ranking will shoot up big time with a win over, Marlon, a former world champion, a former number one contender for the bantamweight title for the UFC. So yeah, that's a big win. I knew that fight going into it. That was definitely a dangerous match, especially he's been out of the cage for so long, and a lot of people think that's usually a bad thing, but with time off like that, like you become, so much better if you're consistently training and kind of stepping away from the cage sometimes is a good thing. And I think that paid off for him. I know he had injuries, but I think he's just got sharper and sharper.
Yeah, I mean, he's been putting them together too. Like, as I said, that's his first finish win since January 2018. But he's now on a 3-fight win streak, wins over Sergio Pettis, Ricky Simon, and a finish of Marlon Moraes now. So, like, those names that he's beaten are no joke, even though, Sergio doesn't no longer fight in the UFC. But still, respectable names that got the victories there.
Yeah, all good names, and I think that'll catapult him up to another big one.
Other fight on the main card that was a real competitive matchup between two up-and-coming studs of welterweight was Michel Pereira and Chaos Williams. And Chaos Williams had, 2 fights in the UFC that lasted 57 seconds. This one goes the full 15 minutes, which I always think is better for someone in their career. You can't rely on that power all the time. But I thought for Pereira, that was maybe his most complete fight he fought in the UFC. Didn't try out that, insane spinning stuff that tired him out that we saw against Tristan Conley. He saved it towards the end, and Pereira's really putting himself together a solid run at welterweight right now.
Yeah, definitely I think he took that as a learning experience to, it's always fun to be flashy and doing your crazy shit, and people always, kind of remember you for that, but the bottom line is got to get wins. That's the most important thing. So I think he kind of had a good balance point there of kind of making sure he followed a steady game plan with adding in some of his crazy shit. But yeah, he looked very good, and probably the best he's looked yet.
Other fight, the main event of the prelims featured Anthony Pettis and Alex Morono.
Mhm.
Anthony Pettis at 170 pounds has been interesting. He went out there, looked great, even hit a spinning wheel kick at the end of the fight that really did rock Morono. And Pettis got the decision win. Said he was going down to 155. And Josh, we got some breaking news, like literally before we recorded, per Pettis himself through his Twitter, that he's decided to leave the UFC and test free agency. So, what a way to go out from the UFC for Pettis. You say you're moving back down to your natural weight class of 155, and there's a couple promotions out there that always could need more depth at 155 in Bellator, PFL, and wherever else he may go.
Yeah, that's crazy. As far as this fight, I thought I didn't know a whole lot about Moreno. I've seen him fight like I think once before, but he came out early and threw a spinning, I think it was a spinning back kick, and actually got his back taken, and probably lost the first round, or close to it if it's a closer round. But then he kind of composed himself a bit, and then the spinning heel kick at the end was actually, I mean, they're always flashy and they're hard to land, and when you do, it looks great. But the way he did it too, man, he threw a leg kick, and then on the return from the leg kick, he actually went right into a spinning heel kick, which is pretty impressive, and to get that timing down, and he looked great. But yeah, as far as the free agency, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's you're seeing this kind of happen more and more now. Which is good. It's good for the sport, to be honest. Guys can go elsewhere and kind of drive their dollar up, hopefully, and kind of make room for other promotions to build some guys. And yeah, I don't know where he goes if he's going to fight at 55. I mean, yeah, like you said, he could go to Bellator. There's some good fights there for him. Or I mean, him versus like a Pitbull would be pretty cool. You know what I mean? Or in the PFL and the tournament. So there's lots of options for him. He's a big name, former champ in the UFC and WC. So I think wherever he goes, he's going to have success, I think.
I think most people are assuming already that he's going to head to Bellator. I mean, his brother signed there, so
Yeah.
link back up with him. That makes a lot of sense, and I could totally see that. But I think what makes the most sense for him is the PFL. Because PFL, they've been making these splurges on some of these talents. Like, sure, they signed Clarissa Shields, but unproven in what she can do in MMA. And sure, they've signed Fabricio Verdum, but he's kind of getting towards the end of his run, even though all these incredible accolades. But Pettis is a guy that, especially moving back down to 155, he's still got a lot left in the tank. He's a two promotion champion, whether it was WEC, UFC, and he just has always put on exciting fights in that weight class. And that promotion is someone, especially restarting after the pandemic, would really use him. And I think as well, the $1 million always being there, that's something that he's getting up there in age. May as well try to cash in a cool million before you call it a career.
Yeah, yeah. There's not many promotions where you can go and get 5 fights in the year and win $1 million at the end of it, after all your purses. So that's some big incentive right there. Yeah, thinking about the Bellator, now that you're thinking about it, I do know that a lot of his teammates at Roufusport fight in Bellator. So that could definitely make sense. I could see him and his brother. Obviously, Sergio's with Bellator. Stotts is with Bellator. Sanchez with Bellator. So there is a lot of guys out of that camp now they're signed with that promotion. So I could definitely see him going there as well. But I think, either way will be interesting to see in a different cage.
Well, I think it's just exciting to see some of these guys. UFC said they're making cuts. Obviously, they're not going to splurge big on some contracts right now unless they feel there's value in it right now. And I just think it makes the sport exciting because, about 2008 or so, when you had not only UFC, but you had Elite XC, you had Affliction. There was a lot of options, and the sport's gotten back to that point with promotions in North America. There's a lot of solid promotions out in Asia, out in Europe. Like, there's tons of options where you can go and make his money. I don't think he'd go to one of those European promotions because more eyeballs and where it's driven for him on his track record are in North America. But I think the free agency option is just the best thing to happen right now because you're controlling your own destiny, and more options and more these promotions can really use the value of some of these fighters.
Yeah, for sure. And so many people here in North America think that this is all there is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So they have no idea of a one out in Asia. They have no idea of Risen. They have no idea of a KSW or the Braves out there, or even the ACB or ACA it's called now in Russia, or Fight Nights. There's so many promotions out there, man, that will definitely pay. Yes, the UFC is probably the biggest and most well-known organization in the world, but it's there's definitely lots of activity out there and lots of big promotions that he could go to. But I definitely see him either, yeah, like you said, Bellator, PFL, or I could definitely see a one, just because just like Eddie Alvarez type style.
I mean, one would be make a lot of sense as well. They have a lot of those, a solid lightweight division. They do have a TV deal in the States on TNT, even though the time zone's not the best. But you could always market some of these top tier, like your Mighty Mouse and a Pettis on a card in a better time slot that could work out. So, and TSN's a big sports network as well with NBA coverage, and they have AEW as well. So there's a lot of options there. But I think one would be a long shot.
One.
Yeah, exactly. But that was pretty much the card. Did anything else catch your eye, Josh?
No, those were like the main ones that I was really focused on, and like obviously the two bantamweight fights where I was looking forward to most, and but yeah, overall I enjoyed the card.
Only other fight I'd mention is Jimmy Flick, who won the contract of the Contender Series,
Yeah.
pulled that flying triangle out of nowhere, and he was really getting picked apart in the feet by Cody Durden. But he's such a solid grappler at 125 pounds, and I interviewed Jimmy earlier, and it's like he's had 4 fights now in 2020, which is really impressive, especially with how the pandemic's been. And what a way to just cap it off, especially in the UFC and as in a division we've talked about that's really starting to grow in the UFC at 125 pounds.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. I remember Jimmy from The Ultimate Fighter. He tried out in my season 18 way back when, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was an alternate. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was. And yeah, he was a good dude, and I seen him competing on the regional level and getting wins. And then yeah, it's good to see somebody like that, put in the work and pay their dues. Now he's getting to kind of showcase his skill set on a big stage.
You know what? I think when I interviewed him, he did mention he was an alternate or something like that for the Ultimate Fighter, because he made the weight for bantamweight but never got to fight, and he was never real. Like, he thought that had to be his weight class, but he was a little too small for 135. So he's really excited that 125 is really picking up, and he had the most submission attempts in the history of the Contender Series, and now gets a flying triangle victory in real impressive fashion. But that's the final event for the UFC in 2020, Josh, and they'll take a 3-week break before getting back at it with 3 events in 7 days. I mean, I guess we can kind of enjoy this little break and from MMA before it all picks up again.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good to kind of, it's good for anything. Too much of anything is not good, right? You get kind of sick of it, so you want to crave it again. You want to get excited. So have a little break is a good thing.
Well, someone that still wants to, even though he's on vacation, that's Dana White. He wanted to take a break, but he did put out this very interesting video on Twitter where it was pretty much Dana White giving himself the old Barry Horowitz pat on the back for the year that he has able to put on with the UFC, and really taking his shots at the media. And while there were some doubts, and I was one of them, I feel this was like the biggest piece of propaganda video I've seen in quite a while, considering the media and myself and a lot of people, we had their doubts, but I think it's been a lot more praise for the UFC with how they've been able to run events and be the first sporting franchise back. And I think it's been nothing but positive. It's really just Dana going, screw the media. I don't know. I don't know why he feels the need to make the media such an enemy when they're a big part of his success right now.
Yes. So it's I'm kind of torn because a lot of stuff Dana says and does I don't agree with. I think a lot of time he lets his kind of more ego kind of driven. And so, yeah, some of the stuff, Dana White has done a lot of great things for the sport, and without him, it probably wouldn't be where it is, right? He has done a lot, so give credit where credit's due. He uses his kind of brash personality as a promoter. I think he kind of took the Vince McMahon route a bit, you know, and kind of seen that how you can be the boss man and kind of create that character, and people will kind of get entertained by it and driven by it. So I think he used that, and it was successful for him. And then as far as the media, um, yeah, so I kind of agree with him to a degree, because I do feel that the media, a lot of the times, the mainstream media, I should say, are just they bullshit, and a lot of the times they, first of all, a lot of times they give out false news, and then secondly, they are the first to criticize in a negative way before anything. So I can understand where he's coming from in that sense, um, but he definitely did this directing. Like, did he have to do this? No, he could have just said, we were the first ones back. People doubted us, but we did it, blah, blah, blah. And that was it. But he kind of went beyond that. And he's like, showing the people specifically who was doubting him and shit like that, which, I mean, was that necessary? I don't know. I probably don't think so, but he thought so.
Well, a lot of the people that he specifically highlighted are people that Dana just hates to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, he highlighted Bob Arum, who we know Dana
Yeah.
hates, even though they work, their promotions are on the same network. So I'm sure ESPN's thrilled about their relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, he put a clip of Ariel Helwani. We know how he feels about that, and some of the other media members. He's done a lot this year about, like, look how great we did. It's like no one doubted you, like in the sense of how big of a comeback it was. A lot of people have given you praise. I think, how they came back and how people really miss sports, especially at the point in May when the UFC came back. But there's also this revisionist part where, like, they ran that show in Brazil without any COVID testing or anything like that. And then they're talking about social media numbers and growth. Like, that's all well and good. But, like, when they wanted to run UFC 249, they wanted to run it in the state of California. And Gavin Newsom got a call from the head of Disney, and that shut that show down. You didn't see any disrespect to those types of people. I don't know. It was just a lot of, like, I guess the most polite way is the Barry Horowitz, the old pat on the back. Look how great we are. Like, it just really came out of nowhere. Like, I know Dana is a big brash personality, but never a video like this. Like, this felt like the ultimate hatred to any media member.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's probably a lot of media that were, on the opposite end of it, and they were kind of like praising this whole thing from the get-go and hoping that they succeeded. But I know there was a lot right away off the bat that were just, this shouldn't happen. This is going to fail. This is stupid. This shouldn't be done. Risking lives, blah, 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 blah. And so I understand where he's coming from in that sense, because there's just a lot of, people criticizing, from the sidelines that are just wanted to see things not happen. You know what I mean? So, and as far as, I mean, I guess I'm probably influenced because this whole thing, what's going on right now, I don't agree with a lot of it. And I think a lot of it is embellished, and I think a lot of it is used as fear tactics for the general population, and they're just trying to make people, fear this virus, which is, I know it's real, 100%. I know it is, but I think they're using it to their advantage, and so I do like that he's just kind of saying, like, fuck you, we're going to do this no matter what. We're getting through it. Through all your hurdles, we're going to do this. So that, in that respect, I do like that.
Well, I mean, he did end up doing and getting ways he wanted to do it, and they ran shows. I mean, I think there was a part in it where he was like, something about, like, their COVID test. They've had at least, maybe it was an interview he did with BT Sport. It wasn't in that video, but they have had a decent amount of positive COVID tests since this. So they tried to say it was like 0.0008. I'm like, I don't think it's that. I think because, like, this card or 250, like, this card had like 4 fights fall through because of COVID. So COVID's a thing that I know Dana doesn't feel it's that important, or I don't think he takes it as serious as most people have, but yeah, nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, sir.
But nonetheless, he did make it work. He did put on a lot of fights for his athletes, and did sign a lot of athletes, especially in the Contender Series. Like, he didn't have to sign that many people. He
Mm.
signed a lot of people and gave them opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, I think he maybe forgetting that aspect of it, but it just how the video came across like really made him look bad in my opinion.
Yeah, and people, there's gonna be cases. Like people are gonna get COVID. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen. You know what I mean? So we can't just hide and forever and hopefully this just goes away and people's lives just the only way that you're like if you literally stayed in your house and did not go anywhere and see anybody, but that first of all, you can't do that. Secondly, what kind of life is that? You know what I mean? Like most people can't. A lot of people's gyms and their businesses and all these things are all closed down now, and they're getting fucked by the government. You know what I mean? All these other people that are making the decisions are getting these regular paychecks, and some of them are getting increases in pay. So, I that's why I think I kind of side on his video. I think I mean not against all like the media. I know he's really kind of giving it to them, but as far as like going through all the bullshit, I do like that. It's kind of like standing up for what you think is right to do. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna run my business. I'm gonna make a living. I mean, he's got tons of money, so he doesn't need to make a living by doing this already. But like for other people, the people that are working for the promotion didn't get laid off or didn't get fired. So that's a positive, and I do like that.
With
And,
this
and it
video,
also gives the fighters a chance because, and same thing with Bellator. I know Bellator was later to the dance just to start because they had to get their ducks in a row first and figure out how they're going to do it within the Mohegan. But without them doing that, without them implementing that, I wouldn't be able to make a living this year. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, for the second half of the year anyway. So I'm grateful that these people are doing this. It's costing them more money and more time and more headaches. But I'm glad that they're kind of doing their absolute best to get everything running and make giving me an opportunity to make a living.
I think, as 2020 winds down, I think when we look at Dana White in 2020, I think he came off bad. I'd say at the majority of it, he came off bad. But there's a lot of positives I think we can credit him for. Like just even coming back, because with him coming back, he really set the blueprint for other MMA promotions, other combat sport promotions, and in a sense, other pro sport leagues were able to kind of find a model that that UFC kind of started.
Yeah.
As well, he's like I said, he signed a lot of fighters and stuff, but he does seem to have a caring for like the regional scene. Like you've just seen Fight Pass sign a whole bunch of promotions throughout the world, not just in the United States, like a couple in Canada, Europe, wherever else. Like he does care because he knows the value of the sport and that area is the lifeblood of it. So he's done some of his actions have come across better, but just how he's maybe treated the media and acted amongst himself about COVID wasn't the greatest thing. But some of his actions have, I think, been better, and I think maybe we could remember those a little bit better when we look back on 2020 in like 5 years.
Yeah, and I do like how the regional scene, because I think he's not being short-sighted. The regional scene is very important. It might not seem like it because they're smaller shows, but those are the shows that build up your guys that are going to be fighting in the bigger leagues someday. So without them, it's kind of like in hockey right now. I feel bad for the guys that are in their draft year and shit like that because that's going to affect their careers potentially, right? So, taking care of that from the ground up, you're gonna help yourself in the future. And yeah, as far as like you said, with how he kind of interprets it and puts it out there, it's almost like Trump-like, you know what I mean? And I know they're buddies, right? So it's kind of similar. But I agree with that. I think the message could be sent a little bit better. I know that's how Trump is too. He's very brash and no filter and very whatever the word you want to say for it. But I think what the what's behind the message and what the actions actually are and the things that they're doing are actually very, very good. And so I agree with and applaud on that.
Last thing on this video, like I think maybe it's only the MMA population obviously talking about it because he took the shots at MMA media, but it's kind of amazing that this hasn't taken much of an uproar in more major league mainstream media for sports, because could you imagine like a Gary Bettman or a Roger Goodell taking shots at media like that? Like I think that's the one thing we're still MMA while it's grown leaps and bounds, it's still not at that level because no other head of a sport would ever treat media or anyone like this.
But but that's kind of what I like about it, to be honest. It's a fuck you. You know, we're doing our thing. Not gonna just, a lot of people and businesses and things, they're run by big time corporations, and they have to do this, they have to do this, they have to do this. So I do like that. It's a sense of like, we're doing our thing, and if you're on board, you're on board. If you're not, then you piss off type deal. So I like it, man.
Well, I just remember when I was in college, I had a buddy that was like, imagine I would like Dana to run like the NHL or the NFL. And it was like, it'd be interesting, but it'd sure be a heck of a, it'd pretty much be like how, like you said, the Trump comparison, like anytime Trump made a speech, it was, content for at least a full week. It'd be the same thing if Dana ran a major sport. So I don't know.
A lot of people, I think, dislike Trump. Probably the same reasons they dislike Dana. It's because of how he comes off, right? And how he carries himself as far as his words he uses and things like that. But the actions behind it are usually very, very good, in my opinion, anyway. So I think people kind of get misconstrued with that, and they only focus on like his demeanor or his words or whatever, how he carries himself, and they kind of should worry about the bigger picture a little bit more. That's a bit more important, I think.
Well, let's talk about the bigger picture. And as this year's come to a close, Josh, what are you going to remember about 2020 in the realm of mixed martial arts? I mean, we had a complete shutdown for a couple months. UFC came back in about May, but we had like from March to May, like zero sports.
Yeah.
Especially for you, like your career was put on hold, and you were lucky to get that fight with Bellator. What was it in October?
August, yeah.
Yeah, August, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's this year is a year that's going to go down in the record books. But what are you going to remember from 2020 in the realm of MMA?
Yeah, it was it was just a weird year, man, and one that we'll never forget. And I'm hoping, positive mindset that next year will be better, and we're going to be, back to a regular path of a full, I want to say regular lifestyle, and get rid of all this shit and put it behind us. I'm hoping anyway. We'll see. But yeah, that for me personally, because I competed in this, so my whole experience doing, fighting with Bellator and doing, going there and getting all the tests, doing all the isolation for time and having to wear a mask everywhere you go and no crowd. Fighting with no crowd, which is different and interesting. So those are definitely things I'm going to remember. And just kind of the process of like, we're going to look back, not just in MMA, but also in other sports. And it's going to be like, they won that year, 2020, but it's kind of have like that, almost like an asterisk beside it, because it wasn't like the same as always. You know what I mean? It was very, very different. Seasons were cut short. It was just, different. But I mean, hopefully, like I said, next year we'll be back to a more regular routine in the sporting world and in MMA, and for the better anyway.
I mean, one question for you is like, I know you fought in tons of many crowds, some really huge crowds, especially in Europe, but what was it like for you fighting without fans and where you can hear everything? You can hear the opponent's corner, where they can hear your corner. Like, I think that's what's made the sport a little bit more exciting, is just the insight that a normal fan wouldn't get to get just with fans and everything like that.
Yeah, it was weird, but I actually liked it, to be honest. I didn't mind it. I mean, yeah, in the fans, it's cool in the walkout and things like that. But once you get in the cage, it really, you kind of zone them out anyway. But yeah, the interesting is being able to hear your corners so, decisively, just so you can obviously have a conversation with your cornerman during the fight, in some positions. So in that sense, I thought it was pretty cool. It's definitely different. When I fought on the Ultimate Fighter, the fight to, get in the house and in the show, there's only like probably, 50, 60 people there total, right, with everybody there. So it kind of seemed similar to that, where you can kind of, I always remember you can hear your footwork, because, they have the mics on the cage, right? So that was always something I always remember. You can hear that much, much better with the no crowd.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think while COVID and 2020 has been a lot negative, but that was a pretty cool positive.
Yeah.
I think this sport of MMA as a whole was kind of a positive year. Like you look at a lot of guys that wouldn't have had the opportunity to break on through and really grow, whether it's a Khamzat Chimaev, a Kevin Hall, and an AJ McKee in Bellator. I mean, there's a lot of up and coming talent that you can see that will be names in this sport for 5 to 15 years, and I think we wouldn't have got that had your occasional, your natural stars, your name brand fighters would have been out there. And I think that's been one of the positives for MMA as a whole this year. Is just a lot of fighters that maybe wouldn't have had that chance got that chance and made the most of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think a lot of guys, especially like when they're on the Fight Island stuff, a lot of guys got like short notice calls. Way more, I think, this year than ever before. So that kind of gave opportunities to a lot of guys, and I think that's why the cuts are coming too.
Yeah.
Because they're overloaded. But it definitely gave a lot more guys opportunities to step in there and fight at the highest level, and where they might have not got those opportunities in a regular year.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as well, and the fight quality as well too. Like especially with training with only X amount of guys because you can't have a full camp. It's, you got to pick who you want to train with, or, a fighter gets there and his coach tests positive. He can't be there. Like a lot of growth from a lot of fighters as well. And just, persevering in this thing. And I think that's been a goal for everyone. You got to find a way to persevere while there's all these restrictions and there's change that a lot of people weren't expecting. But this sport as a whole showed a lot of perseverance.
Yeah, it's a fight, right? It's a constant fight, and you got to deal with adversity, and you got to be persevere, and you got to just keep going and find a way to make it work. And I think that's what you do in a fight, and that's what the MMA community is doing as a whole.
Yeah, I think they're doing their best. I mean, a lot of and as well, like we talk about Bellator, PFL. I think them, Bellator in particular, coming back. I know PFL they had to hold off, but there's a lot of excitement heading into 2021, and I think that also makes the sport, I'm really looking forward to seeing 2021 is just where these promotions grow, as well as with the UFC, especially what happens with these cuts that are bound to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like they said, the UFC picked up so many guys. Bellator picked up so many guys this past like 4 months. And then PFL next year should be a pretty interesting season with all the guys kind of cooped up and not being able to fight this year. So yeah, and with all these cuts coming, that's going to be a lot of free agents too. So I think this next upcoming, I'd say the first 3 months of January are going to be really interesting. Or sorry, of January of 2021, January, February, March, are going to be pretty interesting for the promotions, and I think it'll be a good year.
And what are you yourself hoping for, Josh? As you've been inactive. You're supposed to have a fight, but you're hurt, and hopefully you're on the mend path, and you'll get out there. But what are you hoping for? How many times are you hoping to get out there? Like, what are your goals heading into 2021?
It sucks. I was going to get 3 fights in this year, and obviously I was hoping 3 wins, and an injury kind of took me out. So it was still a good year. I had two fights this year, both my Bellator fights. Made my debut in February, then August, and 2 wins. So it put me in a good spot, and it's been great. But 2021, I would love to fight 3 times at least, and I would love to fight in like February would be awesome, or March at the latest. Get another win. And if it's good enough, and if it's a big enough name and a good enough win, I'd love to get that title shot by summertime. Whoever's holding it, whether it's Archuleta or if it's Pettis or whoever, that would and I want to get that belt. If not, 2 more wins and then get that title fight. So that's kind of the goal. I guess you could say by the end of 2021, Bellator bantamweight champ. That's the goal, man.
How's the back doing right now, Josh?
It's good. It's coming. It's slower than I thought it would be, to be honest. I thought I'd be good in a couple weeks, and because I just think everything's just going to heal like that, But I'm not 18 anymore where it heals overnight. It's taking some time. I'm on the right path. It's getting better and better every day, but it's slow. But I should be good relatively soon.
Well, that's what I like to hear. I'm happy you're on the mend. We'll wind this show down. We've kind of given our thoughts. I mean, I'm just excited to see where the sport grows personally. As you said, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of up and coming names. There's already exciting fights announced. So that should set the tone, hopefully, for a great 2021. And more importantly, hopefully we can get rid of this virus, that we can get back to normal. And, on regional side, hopefully we can get back and call some regional fights, because Lord knows one event was definitely not enough for me and for everyone else involved with the BTC fight promotion. So hopefully everyone has a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes. We'll take a week break, let everyone enjoy the family and get set. And, by 2021, we'll hop back on this, Josh, and break down some fights. And hopefully, we'll be in the start of a lockdown, but we'll have a lot of fights to talk about to get us past the time, because we can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, you said, enjoy the time right now, enjoy the holidays, and we'll kind of pick it up in the new year. And yeah, hopefully this, my opinion on these lockdowns, bullshit, but we'll deal with it and we'll get through it. And we'll talk some fights and keep it going, man.
All right. So Josh, I'll wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year when it comes.
You too,
and we'll talk again in early 2021. I'll have a video coming out next week with year in review, awards, best of, whatnot. Quickly before I go, who do you got as fighter of the year, Josh?
Ooh, I think you got to put in those two we've talked about before, Figueiredo and Holland. I just, off the top of my head, those two, very active. I think 4 wins and 5 wins, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so either one of those, Figueiredo, maybe because, there's more title fights, so it's just, a bigger fight. But still, Holland, 5 wins in 2020 is pretty crazy. So either one's good with me.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. At least who are the two options of the fight, especially just on the activity. But I'm going to have a video out with my year-end awards, best fighter of the year, women's fighter of the year, fight of the year, what have you. And then Josh and I will be back, and hopefully he'll have some fight news for us. Maybe Santa will give him a contract for a fight coming up.
That'd be nice, hopefully, yeah.
All right, Josh. Well, best of luck, and we'll talk again in 2021.
Thanks, brother. You too.